Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are continuing our series on dopamine and we are going to get into Wired for More. So before we get into that, I have this week's parenting moment. So this is from a few weeks ago. I was talking with a friend who she just had her first baby and hers was born right around the time ours was, right? So our babies are like a week apart. And, we were kind of talking just about like the exciting things, like the fun things about being a new mom and all of the things that she heard from parents who'd done it before. Like, I feel like there's this thing where it's like, I don't know, parents almost like to scaremonger new parents. And I feel like it's coming from a place of, oh, I want you to be prepared. And, I'm just trying to give you a fair warning of this is what it's going to be like. And I really wish we could stop doing that and normalize not doing that because, like, is parenting hard? Yes. But can we tell new parents about the amazing, wonderful things about it too? Like the fact that you will spend an inordinate amount of time doing the most ridiculous things because it makes your child laugh and it's a sound you could listen to all day long. And what a beautiful, wonderful thing about parenting that is. Now, when a new parent does come to you and they're saying their struggles, always, always validate the hard. When a parent is struggling, I will every time validate it is difficult because it is. And we don't need to sugarcoat that, but we also don't need to just dwell on how hard it is. Oh, you're going to be so sleep deprived. And oh, just you wait until they're a toddler or just you wait until they're a teenager. Rather talk about, oh, just you wait until they laugh for the first time. It's going to be amazing. Or just you wait until they are interested in sports or they're interested in this activity and you get to go participate in whatever thing they're doing. It's the best, right? So can we just normalize making parenting a positive thing? Because it can be. That's what we talk about all the time. It's all about your perspective. It's all about the way you think about it. So please stop fear-mongering new parents. They're going to be great. And it's going to be a wonderful, beautiful, challenging experience.
I'd have to say we could probably do the same thing with teenagers. There's so much talk about how horrible teenage years are. But like you said, if we're focusing on the positive and focusing on the good things, then that's probably what our brain will filter everything through. And it will be a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to get what we focus on. If we focus on all the hard things about parenting, that's where our attention goes. That's what we're going to get. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, I love being a parent of teenagers. I think it's wonderful. They're wonderful people. It's a wonderful stage of life. It's an exciting time. It's a period of growth and development. And I love it. And yeah, there's some hard parts about it. We've been through some tough things as parents of teenagers. And I still love it, and I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Yeah. So parents out there, just you wait. There's some incredible things coming with your teenager. I mean, just you wait until you get to have what feels like an adult conversation with them, right? Because that can be a difficult part of the younger kids. It's like mom comes home or dad gets home or whatever, and it's like, I just need another adult to talk to. Well, just you wait until they're a teenager and you have these really cool conversations with them. Yeah, so parents, just you wait. There is good things coming, and please look for them. Okay, so helping teens find balance in a world of constant stimulation. And, I know we focus on teens, but this is so applicable for adults. And, the more I think about this topic of dopamine and helping kids find the balance and managing technology and understanding dopamine, adults have so many of the same struggles. And I think a lot of it is because we also weren't taught to regulate when it first came out. As adults, we get the same dopamine hits that the teens do. And a lot of us weren't taught to regulate. Some people are really great at it. And then even sometimes adults struggle with it too. But with teens, I feel like the consequences can be maybe a little bit more higher and a little bit more detrimental. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that the struggle with dopamine and this always wanting more challenge starts at a pretty early age, depending on, at what point we start giving a child access to screens and these quick, fast stimulation type products. All the way through adulthood into end of life. Like it's a struggle. And I think that we often focus on teens because that's the time where we want to start building habits. And if we don't manage and help our children understand how to manage appropriate use of things like screens, it becomes more detrimental to their capacity to provide for themselves or for their families. It could be problematic in relationships, problematic in jobs and in schooling. And so that's why we tend to focus there. And of course, a lot of this stuff starts way before teenage years, right? Learning to manage these things and teach healthy coping skills and regulation skills and things like that should start at a much earlier age than teenagers.
Yeah. So dopamine can actually be incredibly useful and incredibly helpful because it does motivate us to go and do. But, the problem is like you said, we get those fast paced hits of dopamine. And for teens, oftentimes more never seems like enough. And I was reading this, I'm like, ooh, I'm guilty of this too, right? So things like one more video game, one more reel, one more notification, one more hour. And it's not that they're necessarily chasing things that are bad. It's more of they're chasing that stimulation and that novelty. Our brains love novelty. And so, the next video, it's a surprise. And if it's the same video, you're just going to scroll right back because there's always another one. And our brains just love that type of stimulation.
I want to understand that because, yes, even as an adult, I know all this, but you could be scrolling on social media and you're just like you said, just like, oh, one more video. But it's usually not one more video. And you just keep going. And I even know all the science and the facts and why and all that. So I don't know, it's fascinating to me that it just keeps pulling and grabbing your attention even when you know better.
Well, and I think we want to be careful here. Like the technology isn't bad. There's so much good that comes from the use of technology. It's learning to manage ourselves with it and to use it for things that grow us and strengthen us and for healthy amounts of entertainment. Dopamine isn't bad. Dopamine is a very important and useful chemical that exists within our bodies and in our brains, and proper use of it is very rewarding and satisfying. But what we're talking about here is this wired for more and more and more and more. Kids are always saying just one more video or one more game. I just want another hour to do this. They get the dopamine hits from the notifications, right? Like I posted something on Instagram or whatever. And, every single like is a hit of dopamine for that individual. And that more and more and more is the consistent stimulation that becomes problematic for us. And it's the heavy hits of dopamine that become problematic. And then normal, regular, everyday stuff is no longer enticing, right? There's no desire to engage in just a normal human conversation. We can't sit there and be bored and allow creativity to set in. We just want to pick up our phone and watch a video or play a game. And that's where the struggle comes, I think.
Yeah. And so our goal as parents is to help them understand and recognize when enough is enough. Because Facebook can be a great way to stay connected with your friends or social media. And it's not the enemy, it's a tool. And our job is to help them utilize that tool in a healthy manner. So let's take a minute here and understand the always on that is the teen brain. Like modern teens are experiencing constant notifications, right? Their social media, their school expectations, their sports, there's activities, there's pressure to respond immediately. If your friend texts you, I got to respond right now. And then you throw into that fear of missing out. Like something really exciting is going on and I need to be a part of it. And if I'm not online, I'm going to miss it. So what is wrong with that? Explain why that's not good for teens.
Well, I think a big piece of it is that they never recover, right? When we're constantly getting hammered with notifications and I've got to respond. And I think we hear that a lot, right? Like, oh, they left me on red for like 2 hours. I turn that off, man. Like, I don't really care if somebody read it and didn't respond right away. And I'm not going to, I want to respond when I want to respond. You don't need to know when I saw whatever you sent me. And so therefore, I don't ever send red receipts in any of my messaging because I don't think it's great. We need to have time to recover from these overstimulated, always on teenage brains. That might mean, taking a break and putting it down, maybe read a book, do nothing, sit in the car for a car ride for a couple of hours on a trip and stare out the window. Like, you'll be amazed at what happens to the brain when we start getting creative and thinking and looking outside of what's going on in the immediate vicinity around us.
I got one for you. I'm going to call out my children. I have children who cannot do the dishes without their phone propped up watching something.
Yeah.
Constant stimulation. They can't focus on doing a menial task without having their brain being focused on something else and having that novelty. And I'm sure it comes from being bored and not wanting to stand there, and that's distracting, but they need to learn how to be bored.
And the other struggle with that is that when they go to work, sometimes we have menial tasks to do at work, right?
Yep.
And here's where things get a little bit dicey for some. And some people will argue this, but we believe we can multitask, but that's not real. We actually can't. Our brain can't focus on more than one thing at one time. Some people are really good at rapidly switching between tasks, right? Maybe focusing on the movie while they're washing the dishes and switching back and forth to washing the dish and focusing on the movie. But what's really happening is we're missing pieces. Therefore, the dishes aren't as clean as they should be. And they may miss parts of the movie, which maybe that's not important. But when we try and multitask in that regard, things suffer. And we've seen that in our house. That's one of my big pet peeves. Like, I will go through the dishes after they've been washed sometimes by my children and be like, what the heck were you doing? Because you obviously didn't wash this and this and this and this and this. And there have been times where it's been 50% of the dishes or more that have been dirty. And that's because they're trying to multitask and they really can't do it. And they're not doing a very good job of it. I hate that they do that. And I actually won't allow my children who are not adults. I have 2 adult children living in the home. If I catch them, I have them turn it off. Nope. Turn it off. This isn't the time to watch TV. Focus on doing the dishes and be there. I just don't think it's a good idea. I think it's dangerous for them. And I think that they're going to do better if they can learn to focus on menial tasks and maybe let their imagination wander while they're doing these menial things, doing the dishes or vacuuming the living room or whatever the task or the chore might be in that moment, even cutting the grass. I guess I have less of a struggle with just listening to music or something like that. But the concern is that the always need to be on, being wired for more. We just want more all the time. And I don't love it.
And I love this idea of teens not multitasking, especially when it does come to something important like homework and studying. And, the reality is as adults, we're forced to multitask in some regards, right? Like, we're forced to keep track of multiple kids at one time while also trying to cook dinner. Okay. So, as an adult, it's a reality. Okay. But it doesn't have to be a reality for teens. Right. And so let their brains develop, and I think it is good to set a boundary of, if you want to do this, then, you've got to get through this first. right? Like separate the tasks. And I also think like especially with homework, like homework is a screen-free zone. I think that is such an important boundary to help teens set, is making, I mean, now I say screen-free because, and could be an entire topic itself of, teens often have to do schoolwork on an iPad or a Chromebook or something like that. And so when that's the case, okay, but they don't need a phone, they don't need a tablet. Like when they are working on their schoolwork, they need to be focused on their schoolwork, and helping them to understand like, hey, when you are doing this assignment, be in the assignment, not on whatever other app is on your tablet that you think is cool, right?
I think an overall key here is giving your brain a break. I know even not dopamine, but just even as a parent, I feel the difference when I'm like trying to manage and think about and take care of so many different things that I can just literally say to myself, like, okay, your brain needs a break. Instead of trying to figure out and work on all these things, just give your brain a break so it can relax and then it can come back even better. So I think just encouraging maybe giving your brain a break and not needing to have that constant stimulation.
I agree with that, Selina. And everybody has to multitask. We're not talking about not allowing children to multitask. I think that the point being driven home here is that when we're using these new novel things like video games and short reels and TV to keep us from getting bored while we're doing menial tasks, that's what I'm talking about, that I don't think is good for teenagers and for children.
Yeah, because, audiobooks can be a great thing, and, or even like podcasts. So I had to pull myself out of this trap where it's like, if I had any tiny little bit of free time, I had to be listening to something. And I've been able to kind of rein that back in a little bit. And it's like, you know what? I don't have to be listening to something just because I'm walking up the stairs. Right?
Yes.
That type of a thing. But when I am doing the dishes or when I am cleaning, I love podcasts and I love listening to various podcasts. And you know what? If a teen is into that too, I agree, Jeremiah, that's not a bad thing. Or if they're listening to music, those are good ways to help, and okay ways to help fill time. But what the problem is just that quick one after another video, right? Those reels. Your brain is even less engaged. That's almost like too much multitasking, because like, can you listen to music and still effectively do the dishes? I would argue, yes, you can.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But if you're just one reel after another, your attention is too divided.
So I think that's a good opportunity for us now to, instead of making this a phones are bad episode, we can talk about teaching our kids finding that balance. So questions that we ask them after these situations, instead of like, get off your phone, like, how do you feel after scrolling? How do you feel after being outside? How do you feel after hanging out with friends in person? And helping them make that connection of how they feel different in those different situations and what they want to feel like and what would be more useful in helping them.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week as well, with curiosity questions to help them learn to recognize how different things affect them. Like I could tell you, one of the things that I notice is if I start watching YouTube videos, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos, usually because I'm trying to learn about something, but sometimes it's just because I really enjoy different topics. Like I enjoy trucks and cars. And so I'll watch videos about things like that. I find myself getting really tired. And I started noticing that a while back. And I thought, this is a great thing to help our kids to understand that, watching 2 hours of YouTube shorts or Facebook reels or Instagram videos, I don't know what they're called, whatever they are, how does it make you feel? What are you experiencing when you do that? And helping them to connect the dots to understand that maybe this isn't the best use of my time.
Yeah. So here's a good real life example. Your teen says, oh, I hate family hikes. And you can plug hikes in for anything, right? I hate family walks. I hate whatever it is that you're doing. And rather than just coming back with, suck it up, we're doing it anyways, what's a better response to that?
Well, acknowledging kind of where they're at, because they don't want to go on a hike because it's a slow pace. So something like, yeah, man, I get it. A hike is a little bit slower than your video game you've been playing. And sometimes it just takes time for our brains to adjust. And so here we can have a conversation of what that means. Because if you just say that to a kid, they're going to be like, huh? What do you mean my brain adjusts? So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on and why the hike seems so boring when we've been watching 2 or 3 or 4 hours of videos or playing video games for the last hour that's super fast paced and what's around the next corner and what's the next level going to look like? How hard is that going to be to beat? And how quickly can I beat it? So we're going to talk through that with them and help them understand what's happening.
I'd say we have this whole hike that we can talk about this and figure out why you don't like it. That'll get them excited. Now, I think that's where our curiosity question would come in. Oh, what is it that you don't like about family hikes? And hopefully they would have the relationship that they could be honest and tell you why they don't like the family hikes. And then you'd have some insight as to what's going on and what they're experiencing.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you let them get out of the hike either, or like whatever reason it is. Like maybe, you have this tradition of you go on a walk once a week as a family. Like you go out and you're doing this family thing and they're like, I don't want to do this. So that curiosity piece, yeah, it matters, but it doesn't mean you don't also set the boundary.
Yeah, if that's a boundary you want to set. I think the principle here is that we're teaching them about recovery from the overstimulated brain, right? And sometimes that could be playing music. All of our kids are involved in music in some way. It's something we've always kind of required of our children, and we've helped them to develop a love for. And every one of our children has some sort of musical talent. And that music is a great way for recovery. Walks are another one. That's why we're bringing up hikes and walks, right? Any kind of movement, physical movement helps the brain to recover. Art is another good one. If your family or your teen or child is into art, exploring art can be a lot of fun. Quiet time, that's where the creativity comes in, right? And then, of course, face-to-face connection. Face-to-face connection is slow. It's not fast. It's not something that happens like we see in video games and videos and things like that. It's a slow process, but all of those things are examples of kind of recovery moments for the brain to recover from that massive dopamine hit that's been going on.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another good one that I love, because all the time, there's literally nothing to do. I'm bored. Kids say that all the time. And my response is, go clean your room. That's my response. And they're like, but that's even more boring. And I'm like, well, it's not my job to entertain you. And okay, so like that's my typical response. I'm not really doing a good job of creating connection there. So
well, and most of us aren't, right? I think my response is usually, oh, you're bored? I have plenty of things I could give for you to do.
Exactly.
Which is very similar to what you're saying. So, there could be a better response here. Something like, I wonder if your brain's waiting for stimulation instead of creating something. And so here again is the opportunity for conversation about boredom and what boredom can do for us and why it could be valuable, and learning about creativity, because boredom usually comes before creativity, right? We're going to be pretty bored, and then our brains start to explore things and come up with things that we'd never come up with if we didn't have kind of some downtime for our brain. If we're always stimulating our brain, when do we ever get to explore thoughts outside of what's happening on a screen in front of us, right? And I think about, love him or hate him, guys like Elon Musk and some of the things that he's come up with, or Steve Jobs with Apple computers, or, some of these other individuals that have dreamed up and come up with these wonderful innovations and technologies that bless our lives. If they were never bored and they were always stimulated, they would never have come up with these things that can be used to really enhance our lives. Also, as we're talking about, it can be used to be more problematic if we don't use them in the right way. But teaching kids to be bored is a powerful tool if you can do it as a parent.
Yeah. And also understanding too, they may not listen and they also may not care. Right? Like, so you can tell them these things and just be prepared for them to say, I don't care. I just want my phone back. I just want to keep scrolling. And if they say that, it's okay. I think it's okay to acknowledge that and say, well, yeah, I understand, but we're still gonna stop, right? Like, we're still enforcing.
Someday you'll thank me for this.
That doesn't work. I wish it worked. It never does. Did it work? Think back. Did it work when you were a teen?
No, but as an adult, yes, definitely. I understand it. But that type of conversation isn't helpful. You're right. And so, yeah, you're going to get pushback on a lot of stuff like this. Your kids aren't going to care because they don't have the capacity yet to care. They don't understand the implications of these things. That's why we have parents. That's why we have to do our job as a parent, to set healthy boundaries with technology and to help them learn these things, even if they don't want to learn them. There's ways we can go about this and manage it without destroying the relationship.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about that modeling piece to wrap up. The need to be balanced ourselves. For example, like, are we expecting our teens to be present with us and to disconnect from their phones, and yet we're answering emails during dinner, right? Or we're not taking the time. So that modeling piece really matters here too.
Yeah, I always say that. I'm not just playing on my phone. I am working.
Uh-huh.
Yep. I'm modeling exactly to them what I don't want to happen.
Yeah, I think every family needs to have, phone-free zone at certain times, whether that's dinner or time in the evening or whatever it is. I'm trying to remember, there was somebody I listened to who talks about, no matter what, if your child walks into the room, put your phone down.
Yeah.
John Deloney.
Is that a John Deloney thing? It probably is. I really appreciate a lot of the things that he says and does, but that's a good modeling behavior, because it's a social skill that you teach, right? There's several things going on there. One of those is that we're going to create a stronger connection with our child. When the child walks into the room, we put our phone down. It tells the child, you're more important than whatever else I've got going on. And that creates connection, and that's super important. But it's also a modeling thing in social settings that, so when there's somebody else in the room with me, I shouldn't be on my phone. Because how many times have you been in the car where you got two teenagers are texting each other, sitting next to each other instead of having a conversation, right? It's super common. But if we start teaching it in that way, then we learn that, when someone walks in the room, we have enough respect for them to put the phone down and to have a conversation.
Exactly. So, yeah, I love this idea of modeling. People are way more important than whatever is going on your screen, because what's happening in front of you, what's happening in the room is real time. That screen, almost always, it can wait. But what's happening now in the here is more important.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's just one example, but as parents, we've got to model, just putting the phone away and not always having to be stimulated just the way we're expecting and wanting them, because we have the same struggles. It's a little bit different, and our brains function a little bit differently as they develop, but the struggles are so similar. And as we model these things and our kids see it, it's a lot easier to work with them than we have our phone in our hand telling our kids, get off your phone, you're on your phone too much, right? Like, where's the value in that for them? And I mean, it's the age old adage, right? Like, do as I say, not as I do, but that never works, right? They will always do as you do, not as you say. And so modeling it is critical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's my final thought. I kind of like this thought of healthy homes don't eliminate stimulation. They create space for recovery. The reality is we live in a technology world. There's great benefits. We want our kids to learn and use their phones and other technology appropriately. So it's not talking about getting rid of it and not having any of that, but creating that space that we can manage it and have a recovery and find other things to enjoy beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's say somebody wants to get in contact with you guys and learn more about this or discuss more of this. how do they get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, if you're having these kinds of struggles with your teen or yourself or even a young child, reach out. We'd love to chat with you and see how we can help. Best way is probably just calling our office, 208-557-1227. But you can also reach us on our website, coreconnection.org. You can text us at that phone number. We'd love to talk to you, so reach out.
Okay, great. Next week, we are going to continue on with the topic of dopamine. We are going to get into finding joy beyond the scroll, and we will see you all then. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.